Chase Sexton is one of the most gifted riders American motocross has produced in the last decade. A rider with the kind of technique that looks like it was engineered, not taught. Every team sees him as their next franchise player. Every bike he touches feels like it should be the one that completes the puzzle. And yet, something keeps breaking the spell. Tiny losses of traction, small slips in ruts, front-end moments that appear from nowhere, crashes that don't match the talent. Sexton is a rider who can dominate a field one lap and be in the dirt the next. A rider who looks like a champion Monday through Saturday and then gets betrayed by something invisible on race day. So the question follows him from team to team like a shadow. How can someone this polished still feel unsolved? When Sexton landed at Team Honda HRC, it felt like destiny wearing red plastic. Honda doesn't build bikes for technicians. Riders who trust geometry load the front with precision and carve lines that look like they were drawn with a compass. Sexton was that rider. Textbook form. Weight forward into every corner. Smooth on the throttle. A rider who could demonstrate proper technique in slow motion and still look fast. 2023 proved it. Sexton won the 450 Supercross Championship. Red bike, red plate. The story Honda had been building since they signed him was finally paying off. The clean rider on the clean machine. Everything lined up. But under the podium finishes and late season surge, another pattern was forming. One that didn't fit the narrative. Small crashes. Quiet ones, the kind where Sexton was in complete control one moment and sliding across the dirt the next. Sometimes while leading, sometimes while cruising, sometimes in corners where crashes don't happen. Front-end tucks in sections he'd cleared 20 times that day, slips in ruts that should have held, moments where the bike just didn't respond the way it was supposed to. Fans started joking. Sexton lost the front again. But jokes only work when you're winning. When the crashes kept coming, the jokes turned into questions, and the questions didn't have answers. Why is one of the cleanest rider on the track making the messiest mistakes? When Honda added a second rider to the story, everything changed. Jet Lawrence showed up at Honda with a completely different rulebook. Where Sexton was textbook precision, Jet was controlled chaos. He rode loose, reactive, improvisational. If a rut broke mid-corner, Jet flowed with it like water finding a crack. If traction shifted, he adjusted before his brain even registered the change. And he didn't crash. Two riders, two factory 450 Hondas. Same frame, same fork, same front-end geometry. One rider trusted it completely. The other kept finding the ground. That contrast created the most brutal comparison in modern motocross. Sexton could match Jet's speed, sometimes even beat it. On a perfect day, on a perfect track, Sexton could dominate. But over a full season, over 17 rounds of pressure, mistakes, and late lap chaos, Jet stayed on two wheels. Sexton didn't. Same bike, different results, and no one could explain why. Honda engineers ran the same setup sheets, same suspension settings, same tire pressures, same maps. One rider made it look easy, the other made it look impossible, and that created a crack in the story Sexton was trying to write. A crack he couldn't outrun on a red bike, so he changed the color. When Sexton announced he was joining Red Bull KTM Factory Racing, the sport didn't just take notice, it erupted. This was a rider trying to rewrite his entire identity. At Honda, Sexton had speed, support, and a championship. What he didn't have was separation from the one rider who kept proving he could do the same thing, but cleaner. Every time Sexton won, the question wasn't, can he keep it up? It was, can he do it as consistently as Jet? KTM offered something Honda couldn't. A clean slate, a new bike, new geometry, new engineers, no Lawrence shadow, no direct comparison, no expectations to match someone else's results on the same machine. For the first time since his 250 days, Sexton would be the guy, the franchise, the rider the team built around. A bike tailored to his inputs, his preferences, his feedback. A chance to rebuild trust from the ground up. It was the perfect escape, the perfect reset, the perfect solution to a problem no one could define. And then the season started. The front-end issues didn't disappear on the orange bike. They evolved. The quiet Honda tip-overs became violent KTM slams, jumps where the bike kicked unexpectedly, corners where the front loaded strangely and punished him for trusting it, sections where the shock reacted differently than it had in practice. Technical surprises that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as fast, leaving Sexton on the ground with no clear explanation. Then came the mechanical gremlins, a shock failure mid-moto, a bizarre incident involving a bug hitting him at speed, small failures that shouldn't matter but did, because for a rider like Sexton, predictability is everything. When the bike stops responding the way you expect, the psychological damage is worse than any crash. He started second-guessing, not just the bike, himself. Every corner became a test. Every rut became a question. Will the front hold this time? Will the setup stay stable in lap 15? Will the bike react the way I need it to? A rider can push through pain, through fatigue, through pressure. What a rider can't push through is a loss of trust. And every crash, every mechanical issue, every round where Jet won on the red bike, Honda chipped away at the foundation. KTM was supposed to be redemption. Instead, it became the darkest chapter of Sexton's career, a season where the mystery swallowed him whole. Now, Sexton stands at the gate of his third factory team in 5 years, Monster Energy Kawasaki, and this move feels different. The Kawasaki 450 is built on a different philosophy. Where the KTM was aggressive and reactive, the Kawasaki is stable and communicative. It's known for front-end feel, predictable handling, and traction that builds confidence instead of punishing trust. The chassis talks to the rider through the bars instead of surprising them mid-corner. It rewards precision instead of punishing it. For the first time since the early Honda days, Sexton has a bike that naturally matches his riding DNA, a machine that wants to be ridden the way he rides. Kawasaki, meanwhile, is starving. They've watched Honda and KTM collect titles. They've watched the Lawrence brothers rewrite the record books. And they haven't held a Supercross championship since Eli Tomac left for Yamaha. They didn't hire Sexton to compete. They hired him to bring the brand back to the center of the sport. So they're building everything around him: the bike, the team, the environment, the support structure. For the first time in years, Sexton doesn't have to run from a ghost. He just has to ride and trust that the bike will be there when he asks it to perform. To understand what happens next, you have to understand what makes Jet and Sexton so evenly matched and so impossibly different. This rivalry isn't built on hatred, it's built on philosophy, on two completely opposite approaches to the same problem, on two riders who represent the extremes of what it means to be fast. Sexton is method, Jet is instinct. Sexton is textbook, Jet is jazz. Sexton is perfection, Jet is improvisation. When everything goes right, Sexton can beat Jet straight up. He's done it. He'll do it again. On a perfect track, with a perfect setup, Sexton's speed is undeniable. But Jet rarely gives him the chance to string those perfect laps together across 17 rounds of chaos. Winning one moto is one thing. Winning a season against Jet Lawrence is something else entirely. It's not about speed anymore. It's about consistency, about staying on two wheels when the track falls apart, about trusting the bike when the pressure peaks and the front end loads in that one sketchy rut on lap 12. That's the mountain Sexton has to climb. Not speed, trust. Strip away the bikes, the teams, the crashes, the titles, and here's what's left. Chase Sexton has championship speed, elite fitness, perfect technique, a work ethic that borders on obsessive, and the ability to beat the best rider on earth on any given Saturday night. What he hasn't had, consistently, is trust. Trust in the bike under him. Trust in the front end when it matters most. Trust in the setup when the track turns to moon dust in the final laps, and every input becomes a gamble. Honda gave him success, but not clarity. He won a title, but the crashes never stopped. KTM gave him lessons, but not stability. He learned what didn't work, but the cost was brutal. Kawasaki gives him something he hasn't had in years: a true reset, a bike that wants to be trusted, a team that isn't comparing him to anyone, a season where the only narrative is the one he writes himself. Can he finally find a bike he trusts enough to let his talent win the war, not just the battles? Because if he does, if the front end stays calm, if the confidence comes back, if the machine holds when the pressure peaks, Chase Sexton has everything he needs to dethrone the rider who's haunted him since the Honda days. And if he doesn't, he remains the most talented rider in the world who never stopped crashing at the worst possible times. The bike is green now. The chapter is unwritten, and the Sexton mystery continues. One corner, one rut, one front-end moment at a time. If you want to see another rider entering a completely new chapter of his career, then don't miss the next video. Hayden Deegan's 450 era begins, from viral star to factory monster explained. It's the full story of how a YouTube kid with insane talent became Yamaha's biggest 450 gamble. Tap here to keep the story going, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next breakdown.